Since the Racing Point pink Mercedes controversy was finally resolved, the FIA has planned to outlaw so-called copycat cars in Formula 1 in 2021. While a laudable objective, the question of how to achieve this was more complicated. But now, the FIA has released the regulations that draw a clear line between drawing inspiration from a rival car and copying it. One thing that perhaps you should copy is those who have already subscribed to this channel if you want to make sure you never miss our new releases. And also, have a think about hitting the notifications bell so you'll be told the second another video is published. Why is this necessary? The controversy over what were ruled to be Racing Point's illegally designed rear brake ducts was a major talking point in the first half of the season, with Racing Point admitting that it had, legally and using photographs, cloned the all-conquering 2019 Mercedes. Amid all sorts of innuendo about how this might have been achieved, it wasn't until an agreement was in place to curb copycat cars in the future that all of the teams involved in an appeal against the verdict that had gone against Racing Point, but perhaps not as strongly as some wanted, agreed to stand down. The FIA recently released the regulations facilitating this, laying out more rigorous rules with a specific attempt to outlaw reverse engineering as a means to copy a rival's concept. What are listed parts? The focus is on the rules governing what are now called Listed Team Components, LTCs. These are now defined as components whose design, manufacture and intellectual property is owned and/or controlled by a single competitor or its agents on an exclusive basis. Previously called listed parts, this list includes a survival cell, front impact structure, roll structures, brake ducts and the bodywork. The regulations are now more rigorous in their definitions of the requirement to design and manufacture LTCs, encompassing the full design and R&D history of these parts. Within that definition, teams may outsource the design of LTCs, as Haas does with the Lara, provided certain criteria are satisfied. These are that the team must retain the exclusive right to use those parts while it is in F1, and the company or companies that design and/or manufacture the parts cannot be a rival team or what is defined as an associate of a rival team. It also cannot be a party that directly or indirectly designs LTCs or TRCs, transferable components, for any other competitor. What copying is allowed? While the LTC definition sets clear boundaries for the design and manufacture of such components, the rules also attempt to eliminate outright copying. The rules accept the principle that it is permissible to be influenced by the design or concept of a competitor's LTC using information that must potentially be available to all competitors. But there are limits to this. The regulations state that such information can only be obtained at events or tests, with reverse engineering also outlawed. Now, reverse engineering is defined by 4 processes. The first is the use of any kind of images combined with software that can convert them into 3-dimensional surfaces or even CAD geometry. The second is stereophotogrammetry, which uses imagery to estimate 3D coordinates of an object, as well as other 3D imaging techniques. The third is any form of scanning of the physical car or components, data which could be used to reproduce the shape of car components. The fourth is any technique projecting points or curves onto a surface to allow information to be extrapolated from rival cars. In short, this means you cannot use advanced 3D modelling techniques or scanning of physical parts to gain precise measurements to facilitate reverse engineering. How is this policed? The regulations state that in cases where isolated features of one team's LTCs resemble that of a rival, the FIA will investigate if this has been done legitimately or through reverse engineering. To do this, the FIA can request any data about such parts and the history of their design process. This section of the regulations also enshrines the grandfathering of parts used in 2019 and 2020. This means that anything carried over or evolving from the current Racing Point RB20 will still be legal next season by effectively wiping the slate clean. As before, the regulations prevent teams passing on or receiving information on LTCs from other teams, as well as outlawing both consultancy with third parties supplying services to a rival related to LTCs and the sharing of what is called methodology. While it is also demanded that teams or their agents must have exclusive ownership of all rights related to its LTCs, it does allow the use of specialist intellectual property or technology from third parties, provided this is available to all competitors. The use of commercially available subcomponents or subassemblies is also permitted, provided they are available to all. The FIA is allowed to request a list of such components and has the power to classify these as LTCs if they are deemed to be an attempt to circumvent the LTC rules. Will it work? The new regulations are more rigorous than the ones that previously existed and close off many of the weaknesses that were laid bare by the pink Mercedes controversy. By grandfathering the cars, they effectively draw a line under what has happened before, and everyone starts from zero next year, with anything evolving from current cars deemed legal. Explicitly outlawing the scanning of cars and various means of clandestinely sharing information creates far more certainty in the regulations, as does bringing the need to own the intellectual property of LTCs into the rules. And while breaches of the reverse engineering regulations could turn out to be difficult to prove should there be an investigation into suspected wrongdoing, they do eliminate many of the uncertainties that became points of argument in the Racing Point case. Only time will tell if this has closed off all of the possible arguments that might allow teams to circumvent the intent of the regulations, but it's certainly a big step in the right direction. If you enjoyed this look at the new rules that will prevent copycat cars in the future, please do hit like, and let us know if you think they will have a positive impact in the comments below.